On the day of the car accident, my husband left me behind and went to operate on his first love, Yasmin. First. I didn't make a fuss or try to stop him. It was only because in my previous life, I threatened him with the Vincent family and he saved me first, which led to Yasmin's death from excessive blood loss. My husband claimed that he didn't regret saving me, but then, when I was 8 months pregnant and my water broke, he locked me in the room, resulting in the death of both me and the baby. Facing my shock and anger, he sneered, "If it weren't for you threatening me back then, Yasmin wouldn't have died. I'll make you pay 100-fold for the suffering she endured." When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day of the car accident when both Yasmin and I were involved. The noisy voices of people and the sirens of ambulances rang in my ears. The excruciating pain in my arm jolted me awake, and I gasped for air. The airbag pinned me down so that I could hardly move. I glanced and saw that my arm was twisted abnormally, and the bright red blood had already soaked through my sleeve. "Oh my God, this girl is seriously injured." The surrounding crowd was shouting in panic. I felt like a rag doll being dragged out of the car.ina days. I was carried onto the ambulance. The shrill siren pierced through the night sky, accompanying my intense pain. Didn't I already die? I grabbed the doctor beside me and asked, "Don't worry, you'll be fine. You're one of the accident victims tonight. We'll take you to the hospital. If you don't cooperate, you really might die." I realized that I had been reborn. I tried to open my heavy eyelids, but everything in front of me was blurry. "Dr. Vincent, operating room number 1 is ready. Miss Lorraine is pregnant and her condition is critical. Save Yasmin first. She's frail and can't wait." "Vincent, it's him." I opened my eyes wide suddenly. The blinding white lights in the hospital hurt my eyes, but I still recognized that familiar figure at a glance. He was wearing a white coat and a mask, looking down at the medical record in his hand, with his brows furrowed and a worried expression on his face. "Dr. Vincent, look." The little nurse beside him hesitated as if she was about to remind him of something. "I know. Yasmin's situation is more urgent. Send her to the operating room first." His tone was beyond doubt, with an unwavering determination, as if I, his pregnant wife, was nothing in his eyes. He really chose Yasmin again. I bit my lip hard, and the pain sobered me up a bit. Closing my eyes, I recalled my previous life. I was pregnant with Vincent's child, and because of this car accident, I was in so much pain that I even became permanently disabled. And Vincent, he didn't even come to see me once but rushed to Yasmin's side. "Yasmin! Yasmin!" Vincent's shouts pulled me back from the bone-piercing memories. I saw him kneeling beside the hospital bed, shouting at the top of his lungs. I followed his gaze and saw Yasmin lying on the hospital bed with a pale face, and the blood on her forehead was shocking. Both Yasmin and I needed surgery at the same time, and there was only one chief surgeon tonight, and that was my husband, Vincent. In my previous life, he also chose to save Yasmin without hesitation. "Vincent, are you crazy? I'm injured too. Are you going to just watch me die?" I rushed to him back then, shouting hysterically, completely ignoring my serious injuries. Only then did he notice me, and a flash of impatience showed in his eyes. "Shut up. Although your injuries look serious, they're all just superficial wounds. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal." I was shaking with anger. "Vincent, do you even have a heart? I'm your wife." "Wife?" He seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world and sneered. "Lorraine, don't forget that it was you who forced me to marry you using the Vincent family. Vincent, if you dare to leave, I'll make you lose everything. Lose the Vincent family, lose your career." I was shouting at the top of my lungs, and despair and fear flooded over me like a tide. In my previous life, I begged him desperately and threatened him with the Vincent family before he reluctantly agreed to save me first. I was like a shrew, crying and making a scene, which only made him more annoyed. And when I was 8 months pregnant and my water broke, he locked me in the room, resulting in the death of both me and the baby. In this life, I'll be a good wife and let him see with his own eyes that losing me will be the biggest loss in his life. I must keep my cool, protect my baby, find evidence of his crimes, and make him lose his reputation. "Dr. Vincent, look." The little nurse wanted to say something more but was impatiently interrupted by Vincent. What are you waiting for? Prepare for the surgery. The way he looked at me was as if I were an eyesore by the roadside. I sneered and struggled to sit up on the stretcher. The intense pain made my vision go black for a moment, but I still stared fixedly at his back and said word by word, Vincent, I'll be fine. Save her. Vincent spun around suddenly, a flash of surprise in his eyes as he stared at me. Do you know what you're saying? Your injuries are serious. If you don't have the surgery in time, both the baby and you will be in danger. The little nurse beside him said hurriedly. Lorraine, you're so sensible. I'll immediately arrange for you to wait in operating room number 2. I'll come to operate on you right after I finish operating on Yasmin. Because of Yasmin, I was rarely did one get praise from Vincent. Dr. Vincent, you are highly skilled in medicine and can work wonders. You surely can save her, right? I coldly looked at him, my tone full of sarcasm. Lorraine, you also know that even if I don't save you, the Lorraine family will save you, while Yasmin is all alone and I'll do my best to save her. Vincent was still trying to justify his ruthlessness, thinking that by bringing up Yasmin's pitiful situation, he could make me back down. How ridiculous. Before I could open my mouth to refute, a delicate moan came from not far away. Vincent, I hurt. I looked in the direction of the sound and saw Yasmin leaning against the wall, staggering towards us. She had a pale face, colorless lips, and a bandage on her forehead, looking extremely pitiful. Oh, she really looks so pitiful that one can't help but feel sorry for her. Unfortunately, I'm no longer the Lorraine who could be easily toyed with by her. Yasmin. Vincent heard her voice and immediately turned around like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, and rushed towards her. He held Yasmin up, his eyes full of heartache and worry, and his tone was so gentle it could drip water. Yasmin, why did you get up? You should lie down and rest properly. Be careful not to reopen your wounds. Yasmin leaned weakly against his arms, her voice as soft as a mosquito. I was worried about you. I watched them being affectionate with each other right in front of me and felt nothing but nausea. Cough cough. You'd better send her to the operating room quickly. I deliberately coughed twice, trying to remind them of my existence. Hearing my words, Yasmin suddenly looked up, her almond-shaped eyes full of hurt and grievance. Sister Lorraine, I'm sorry. It's all my fault for getting injured carelessly. I told them it was just a minor injury, but Vincent insisted on operating on me himself, fearing that I might have some after effects. She said, glancing timidly at Vincent as if she had suffered a great injustice. She really knows how to pretend. In my previous life, when I was on the verge of death after being hit by a car, this woman didn't even spare me a glance. She just threw herself into Vincent's arms, crying pitifully. Anyone who didn't know the truth would have thought that she was the one who was seriously injured. I sneered inwardly, but remained calm on the surface, and said calmly, really? It seems that Dr. Vincent is really considerate towards Sister Yasmin. Unlike me, even though I was seriously injured, he just left me at the door of the operating room. I deliberately paused and didn't continue, but out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of Vincent's face turning a bit ugly. The doctors and nurses around also started whispering among themselves, looking at the three of us curiously. Lorraine, don't talk nonsense. Vincent finally couldn't help but speak, with a hint of annoyance in his tone. Your injuries aren't that serious. In my previous life, I was seriously injured. Only because I begged desperately and threatened him with the Vincent family did Vincent agree to save me. Even with his full efforts in the rescue, I still ended up disabled. What about me? Do I need to beg you desperately and threaten you with the Vincent family again before you'll save me? I interrupted him, my tone full of sarcasm. What? Now that Sister Yasmin has just a minor injury, you're already so worried? Afraid that she might have after effects? Vincent, you're really something. The more I talked, the more excited I got, and tears couldn't help but stream down my face. The whispers around grew louder, and Vincent's face turned pale and then red, looking guilty but unable to refute. Seeing that I had exposed her true face, the grievance in Yasmin's eyes instantly turned into resentment. but she quickly concealed it. Pretending to be scared by my momentum, Yasmin shrank back a little, reached out and tugged at Vincent's sleeve, and said timidly, "Vincent, I'm scared." Then, she deliberately staggered a step towards me, and with a scream of awe, she threw herself at me. Bang! I was knocked down heavily by her, and the back of my head hit the cold floor, sending a sharp pain through my head and making my vision blur with stars. I struggled to get up, but felt a warm liquid flowing down my leg. Blood! I'm bleeding. I stared in horror, my voice trembling. "I'll ask my colleagues to help save the baby first. I'll come to operate on you after I finish operating on Yasmin." Vincent's guilt was really as small as a fingernail, disappearing in an instant. Even though our baby was almost lost, he didn't even stay by my side for a while longer, but hurriedly followed Yasmin's hospital bed and ran away. I was really blind in my previous life to think that this man was affectionate. I closed my eyes, letting the tears slide down from the corners of my eyes, and everything in front of me became blurry. I could feel the baby in my womb struggling, once, twice, as if accusing this man of his ruthlessness. Did I lose my baby again? Although it was this scumbag Vincent's baby, it was also my baby. I longed to hold the cute him, rub his chubby little face, hum a song to lull him to sleep, and teach him to read hand in hand. When I woke up, the pungent smell of disinfectant filled my nose, and everything in front of me was blindingly white. I knew that I was back in this damn place again. I had lost him again. Hiss! I gasped in pain as a stabbing pain came from my lower abdomen, as if someone was cutting my flesh with a knife. How I wanted to ask Vincent, "Is your heart made of stone? When you locked me in the room in my previous life, did you ever think about our baby? As you listened to him losing his life bit by bit, and heard my desperate pleas, did you ever feel even the slightest bit of guilt? And you're so worried about your first love even if she's just slightly hurt, while you completely ignored the flesh and blood in my belly, cruelly depriving it of the chance to come into this world." Vincent came to my ward, but I didn't even bother to lift my eyelids. Divorce. My voice was as weak as a mosquito's buzzing, but it was enough for this scumbag to hear clearly. "Vincent, we're getting divorced. I'd like to see if Vincent can still strut around in the city without my protection." At this moment, a slight sound came from beside me. I turned my head and saw a tall and thin figure. He was wearing a white coat and gold-rimmed glasses, looking down at my medical record. The gold-rimmed glasses on his straight nose looked really annoying no matter how I looked at them. Hearing the movement, he looked up. It was an extremely good-looking face, with distinct features, sharp eyebrows and starry eyes. However, the eyes behind the lenses were cold and aloof, keeping people at a distance. "Are you awake?" His voice was deep and magnetic, but without any warmth, as if he was talking to a stranger. Wait, this voice, this face, why do they seem so familiar? It feels like I've seen them somewhere before. With my head injury, I tried hard to search in my mind, but couldn't remember anything. "Who are you?" I opened my mouth in confusion, wanting to ask about his identity. He frowned slightly, seemingly impatient with my question. Just as he was about to explain, Vincent rushed to my bedside in a few steps. "What did you say?" Vincent seemed to have heard the funniest joke. He grabbed my chin. "Lorraine, what kind of trick are you playing this time? Playing hard to get doesn't work on me anymore." The pain made me gasp. He, however, acted as if he didn't see it and tightened his grip even more. I stared at him coldly. This man I once loved deeply was now just a hideous stranger in my eyes. "Let her go." The male doctor beside finally took action. He stepped forward and grabbed Vincent's wrist, his tone icy cold. Vincent let go of my chin in pain, rubbing his reddened wrist, and glared at the male doctor. "Jensen, don't be so hypocritical. Don't think I don't know what you're planning. There's no way you can take advantage of the situation." "Jensen? Is he Jensen?" I opened my eyes wide in shock, looking at this familiar yet strange man in front of me. 5 years ago, he burst into my life like a gust of wind, but then abandoned me ruthlessly when I needed him the most. 5 years later, he showed up in front of me again as a doctor, and I had become his patient. The ward was eerily quiet. Vincent's heavy breathing and the cold light reflected by Jensen's gold-rimmed glasses seemed to be mocking my current embarrassment. Before I could react, Vincent had already rushed to Jensen. The atmosphere between them became tense immediately, and the air seemed to be filled with the smell of gunpowder. I groaned inwardly. What was all this about? One was my soon-to-be ex-husband, and the other was my ex-boyfriend. How could they be about to fight right in front of me? If they really did fight, who should I side with? Just when I was extremely anxious, the sound of high heels clicking on the floor came closer and closer, and a coquettish voice came from the door, "Vincent, don't be impulsive." I turned my head and saw Yasmin limping towards the ward, leaning on a crutch in one hand and the wall in one hand, with an anxious look on her face. Anyone who didn't know the truth would really think she was worried about Vincent. Hearing Yasmin's voice, Vincent indeed calmed down. He turned his head and looked at Yasmin, and his fierce eyes instantly became as gentle as a kitten's, and his tone became soft too. "Yasmin, why did you come? Didn't I tell you to wait for me in the ward?" Yasmin rolled her eyes at him and said coquettishly, "I was worried about you. Look at you, your temper is still so bad. What if you get sick from being angry?" Watching this scene, I just felt extremely ironic. Back then, Yasmin used this pitiful and delicate look to snatch Vincent away from me. Now, she was using the same trick to manipulate Vincent again. Jensen put his hands in his pockets, watching the three of us with interest, a sarcastic smile on his lips as he said slowly, "TSK TSK TSK, using the first love to climb up to a rich man, the status of the rich young mistress is in danger." His tone was full of mockery, as if he was watching a good show. I glared at him hatefully. This man was always like this, watching others' pain with cold eyes, but never thinking he was wrong. Hearing Jensen's words, Yasmin's face, which had been wearing a worried look, instantly changed. She suddenly raised her head, staring straight at Jensen as if she wanted to bore a hole in his face. "Oh, I didn't expect our sister Lorraine to have such good taste. She has Vincent already and still hides a handsome guy secretly." Yasmin's voice was shrill and piercing, like the sound of fingernails scratching on a blackboard, making people's skin crawl. Jensen gave her a cold glance, his eyes full of disdain and disgust, and didn't even bother to respond to her. "Enough. If you want to argue, go outside." I suddenly raised my voice, and the ward became quiet instantly. Vincent looked at me in disbelief, as if seeing me for the first time. And Jensen, still with that calm look, only a barely noticeable emotion seemed to flash in his deep eyes behind the lenses. "Lorraine, you." Vincent was about to speak but was coldly interrupted by me. "Get out. You're not welcome here. You." Vincent was furious but could do nothing about me. He could only glare at Jensen angrily. Yasmin, who had been snubbed, also felt a bit embarrassed. She had no choice but to pull Vincent along sheepishly and limped out of the ward. Only Jensen and I were left in the ward, and the atmosphere suddenly became subtle. I turned my face away uncomfortably, not daring to look into his eyes. 5 years had passed, and he was still as handsome, elegant, and charming as I remembered, as if the years had left no marks on him. As for me, I was already a completely different person, looking haggard. "Your surgery was very successful. Don't worry." Jensen broke the silence. His voice was still so pleasant to the ear, but it made me feel strange. "Thank you," I said in a low voice, with mixed feelings in my heart. Jensen looked at me silently, his eyes full of complex and indistinguishable emotions. "You?" He seemed to want to say something but hesitated. "Just ask whatever you want to ask," I said calmly. I had nothing to hide anymore. "Do you still hate him?" Jensen hesitated for a moment and finally asked. I was stunned for a moment. I had never thought about this question. Hate. Maybe. But compared to hate, I felt more disappointed and disheartened. "I don't know." I shook my head. "Maybe, or maybe not. I just want to live a peaceful life now, far away from him." Yes, originally I was determined to save the poor baby, but now I don't have to worry about that anymore and can focus on getting revenge without distractions. "Don't worry. I'll help you," Jensen said suddenly, his tone firm and serious. I looked at him, and an inexplicable sense of grievance suddenly welled up in my heart. Jensen, do you believe me? I stared at his eyes tightly and asked word by word. Jensen was stunned for a moment. A complex emotion flashed in his eyes behind the lenses, but he quickly regained his calm. He nodded slightly, and his tone carried a barely noticeable bitterness. I believe you. Vincent was quite straightforward. We had an appointment to sign the divorce agreement in our former love nest, the villa that carried countless beautiful fantasies of mine but eventually became a prison. I looked at the documents handed over by the lawyer. The 4 big words, property division, were written prominently on them, but I felt no emotions. Property? I didn't care about it at all. I picked up the pen, without even looking at the content of the clauses, and directly signed my name, Lorraine, at the end. The handwriting was flamboyant, with a sense of determination. Vincent was sitting opposite me, his face pale. His lips moved as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't say anything. I pushed the signed divorce agreement in front of him, my tone terrifyingly calm. Let's part on good terms. Just sign it. I didn't even want to look at him again. My eyes fell on the garden outside the French window. Once, it was full of roses carefully selected by us, but now it was desolate, with only a few weeds growing tenaciously. Lorraine, don't be like this. Vincent finally couldn't help but speak, with a hint of pleading in his voice. Vincent, is Sister Lorraine here? A coquettish voice came from the staircase on the 2nd floor. Yasmin was wearing a pink lace nightgown, holding onto the handrail of the stairs, walking down step by step gracefully, with a victorious smile on her face. She walked up to Vincent, affectionately hooked her arm around his, and looked at me provocatively, her eyes full of pride and showing off. Oh, Sister Lorraine, how come you have time to come here today? Are you here to recall the sweet old days? Too bad, things have changed, and some people are doomed to live only in memories. Yasmin covered her mouth and giggled, her tone full of sarcasm and disdain. I looked at this scene coldly, without any emotions in my heart except endless irony. Yasmin, don't get too cocky. In this world, things change. It's not certain who will have the last laugh. I said coldly, with a hint of warning in my tone. Oh, is Sister Lorraine threatening me? I'm so scared. Yasmin pretended to be scared and patted her chest. Then, as if she had thought of something, a malicious smile curved her lips. However, Sister Lorraine, don't forget that you're alone now, and I'll soon become Mrs. Vincent. By then, the whole Vincent family will be mine. What do you have to compete with me? She said, deliberately thrusting out her chest, pressing her voluptuous body closer to Vincent, her eyes full of provocation. Vincent's body visibly stiffened for a moment, but he didn't push Yasmin away. He just lowered his head, and his expression on his face was not visible. Looking at this scene, I just felt extremely disgusted. Once, I thought Vincent was the person who loved me the most in the world, but reality slapped me hard, making me see his true face clearly. I took a deep breath to suppress the anger in my heart and sneered coldly, Yasmin, do you think you really won? You're just a pitiful wretch. Vincent doesn't love you at all. What he loves is just your value of being used. You're lying. Yasmin's face changed, and she shrieked, Vincent loves me. He told me so himself. Really? I raised my eyebrows, a sarcastic curve on my lips. Since he loves you so much, why doesn't he dare to look into my eyes and tell me himself that he's going to marry you? Yasmin's face froze, and she subconsciously looked at Vincent, only to see that he was still lowering his head, silent. What? Lost your tongue? I pressed on, my tone sharp. Yasmin, you're just a tool he used to stimulate me. When he gets tired of you, he'll kick you out. Don't come crying to me then. You. Yasmin was furious but couldn't refute. Enough. Vincent finally raised his head, stood up abruptly, and glared at me. Lorraine, don't go too far. I met his gaze without fear. I'm going too far? Vincent, who is really going too far? It's you who betrayed our love, abandoned our child, and destroyed everything between us with your own hands. I didn't. Vincent retorted loudly, but a hint of panic flashed in his eyes. Didn't you? Then tell me, where is my child? Why did he disappear without any reason? I asked him word by word, my eyes red. Vincent's face turned pale. His lips moved, but he couldn't say anything. What? Got nothing to say? I sneered. Vincent, you're such a coward. I walked out of the villa's gate, feeling as if all my strength had been drained away. I leaned on the door frame to steady myself, my vision going black in waves. Are you okay? A deep voice rang in my ear, with a tinge of worry. I looked up and saw Jensen standing in front of me. He was against the light, so I couldn't see his expression clearly, but he exuded an aura that made people feel at ease and warm. I shook my head and forced a smile. I'm fine. He didn't say anything but took out a pack of tissues from his pocket and handed them to me. I took the tissues and wiped the corners of my eyes, only to find that there were no tears at all. See, I told you I couldn't cry. I laughed at myself and threw the crumpled tissue into the trash can. She sent these to me. Jensen suddenly spoke and handed his phone to me. On the screen were the messages from Yasmin. The content was disgusting, full of all kinds of vulgarities and threats. She even sent a few photos of me and Jensen. The photos were taken secretly from tricky angles and looked very ambiguous. She said that if I didn't do as she said, she would send these photos to the media and spread rumors, saying that you cheated during the marriage, and about me. She really went to great lengths. I interrupted him, my tone terrifyingly calm. You already knew about this? Jensen looked at me in surprise. How could I not know? I sneered. From the first time she appeared in front of me, I knew what she wanted. What she wanted was never Vincent, but the identity of Mrs. Vincent, everything of the Vincent family. Then why didn't I expose her? I took over his words, a hint of sarcasm flashing in my eyes. Because it's not worth it. To deal with this kind of person, I don't even need to take action. Vincent will make her reap what she sows. As soon as I finished speaking, my phone rang. It was a message from Vincent. Yasmin really likes the jewelry you left in the villa. I'll buy them all. Name your price. I looked at this message and suddenly felt extremely ironic. Back then, every piece of jewelry I carefully selected to please him had now become a tool for him to please another woman. No need. I replied coldly. They're all the trash I don't want, and so are you. If she likes picking up trash, just give them to her. After sending the message, I threw my phone back into my bag and turned to leave. Lorraine. Jensen called out to me, with a tinge of anxiety in his tone. What? I stopped and turned to look at him, my eyes cold. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but finally didn't say anything. Looking at him hesitating like that, I suddenly found it a bit funny. What, do you also think I'm heartless? I raised my eyebrows, a sarcastic curve on my lips. He was silent for a moment and then shook his head. No, I just what? Just think that you're so pitiful like this. He looked at me, his eyes full of pity and love. I was stunned, and my heart skipped a beat. Jensen's eyes were like a deep pool, trying to suck me in. I suddenly felt a bit irritable and pushed him away, walking quickly forward. The divorce proceedings went very smoothly. Vincent probably felt guilty too and left almost with nothing. I held that divorce agreement, without any joy, just feeling empty inside, as if I had been hollowed out. I thought I could start a new life, but the matter of Vincent and Yasmin caused a big stir, like a bomb that exploded in the upper-class circles of the city. The hospital was forced by the pressure and had to put Vincent on suspension without pay, asking him to lie low at home. There were overwhelming news reports, gossip threads on forums, and even some people put the photos of me, Vincent, and Yasmin together and made them into parody emojis. Wherever I went, I felt that people were pointing at me behind my back and whispering. Those noble ladies who used to be enthusiastic towards me now looked at me as if I were a joke, a pitiful creature abandoned by her husband. I started to receive calls from reporters frequently. They wanted to dig out the inside story of my divorce from Vincent and know what I, the abandoned wife, was feeling now. Yasmin somehow got the news about Vincent's suspension. She actually went to the hospital to make a scene and even slapped Vincent in front of everyone. Vincent, you useless wretch. How did you promise me back then? You said you'd give me a grand wedding and buy me the biggest diamond ring in the world. Is this how you treat me now? Yasmin was hysterically roaring. Back then, Vincent had made the same promises to me too. But in the end? He abandoned me and betrayed our marriage for this woman, and now, he deserves it. I thought that after this incident, Vincent should have come to his senses and seen Yasmin's true face. However, instead of breaking up with Yasmin, Vincent became even more obedient to her. He even started borrowing money and embezzling public funds to satisfy her endless material desires. Occasionally, I would hear news about them from friends. It was said that Yasmin was spending money extravagantly and Vincent's savings were far from enough for her to squander. What's more ridiculous was that Yasmin didn't like the profession of a doctor at all. She complained all day long that Vincent was incompetent and couldn't earn a lot of money. Listening to these gossips, I didn't feel a thing in my heart. I even found it a bit funny. Vincent, you deserve this. That day, I was working overtime in the company when I suddenly received a call from Jensen. Lorraine, are you free? Let's have dinner together? His voice was as gentle as always. Okay. I agreed, and an inexplicable warmth welled up in my heart. Perhaps, I could really try to start a new life. In the evening, Jensen and I met at a restaurant. He was still the same, wearing a well-tailored suit, gentle and refined, with a faint smile on his face, making people feel like a spring breeze was blowing. He ordered several dishes that I usually liked and then asked for a bottle of red wine. He smiled and poured me a glass of wine. Come on, let's celebrate your being single again. I picked up the wine glass, clinked it with his, and drank it all in one gulp. I put down the wine glass and looked at him. Suddenly, I asked, Jensen, why are you so nice to me? Lorraine, do you know? Actually, he looked at me, his eyes deep, and hesitated to say something. Actually what? My heart suddenly started beating faster, and I had a faint premonition. He took a deep breath and was just about to speak when the door of the restaurant was suddenly pushed open. A strong smell of alcohol rushed in, mixed with the smell of cheap cigarettes, making my stomach churn. Vincent, why was he here? He staggered in. His white shirt was wrinkled, his tie was askew, his hair was messy, and his face had an abnormal flush. It was obvious that he had drunk a lot. I wrinkled my nose in disgust. In this horrible state, he didn't look at all like the high-spirited young master of the Vincent family that I used to know. Oh, isn't this Vincent? Why, instead of accompanying your first love today, you came here to throw a drunken tantrum? I put down the wine glass in my hand and looked at him with a sarcastic smile. Jensen sensed my displeasure and quietly stood up, standing between me and Vincent, looking at him warily, afraid that he might do something excessive. Vincent was obviously very drunk. He staggered up to me, pointed at my nose, and slurred, Lorraine, you heartless woman. Why did you leave me? Why are you with another man? Vincent, are you crazy drunk? I looked at him coldly. Who was the one who was desperate to divorce me for Yasmin back then? What are you pretending to be affectionate now for? I regret it. Vincent suddenly knelt down in front of me with a thud, hugging my thigh and crying bitterly, Lorraine, I was wrong. I'm really wrong. I shouldn't have believed that bitch Yasmin. She doesn't love me at all. She just wants my money. Lorraine, come back to me. Let's start over, okay? I was startled by his sudden move. Subconsciously, I wanted to push him away, but he hugged me even tighter. A strong smell of alcohol mixed with an unpleasant smell of sweat entered my nostrils. I felt nauseous and almost threw up. Vincent, let me go. You're disgusting. I struggled hard, but I couldn't break free from his clutches. Lorraine, don't be like this. Listen to me explain. Vincent was crying with snot and tears. I really know I'm wrong. Please give me another chance. Lorraine, I love you. I really love you. I can't live without you. But suddenly, a shrill voice rang out at the entrance of the restaurant. Today is our wedding day. Why is he hugging you here? I was stunned for a moment and then looked in the direction of the sound. There was Yasmin, standing at the entrance, her face full of anger and jealousy. What are you doing here? I told you I don't love you anymore. I love Lorraine. Vincent was slightly sobered up by Yasmin's scream. He let go of me, staggered to his feet, and pointed at Yasmin's nose, shouting loudly. I took the chance to escape from him and ran to Jensen's side. Vincent, you lunatic. You? Yasmin was shaking with anger at Vincent's words. She suddenly rushed forward, grabbed Vincent's hair, and yanked it hard. You were desperate for me back then, and now you say you love her? What do you take me for? Let go of me. Vincent was in pain and pushed Yasmin backhandedly. Yasmin staggered and fell to the ground. Vincent, how dare you hit me? You hit me for this woman? Yasmin looked at Vincent in disbelief, and tears rolled down her cheeks like broken strings of pearls. Crying, she got up from the ground, grabbed her handbag, and went crazy, throwing it at Vincent. I'll kill you. Kill you. For making me disappointed. For having only her in your heart. At first, Vincent blocked it with his hands a few times, but Yasmin was like a madwoman, scratching and clawing without caring about her appearance at all. Vincent's face was scratched with several bloody marks. Vincent, you'll come to no good end. Yasmin sat on the ground, cursing at the top of her lungs. I won't let you off even if I become a ghost. Vincent's eyes were bloodshot. Suddenly, he sneered, if you want to die, I'll help you. He suddenly grabbed a table knife on the table and rushed towards Yasmin. Yasmin let out a shrill scream, and her white dress was instantly stained red with blood. I stared in horror, unable to believe what was happening in front of me. Vincent, he actually killed Yasmin. Lorraine, don't be afraid. I'll protect you. Jensen held me tightly in his arms, preventing me from seeing that bloody scene. When the police arrived, Vincent didn't resist at all. He sat there blankly, still holding the blood-stained table knife tightly in his hand, his eyes empty, as if he had lost his soul. I took a last look at Vincent. The affectionate look he once had for me was now replaced by endless emptiness and despair, but my heart remained calm. I watched all this coldly, without a shred of sympathy or pity in my heart. They brought this all upon themselves. When Vincent wanted to divorce me for this woman back then, he should have expected such an end. He deserved it. The end.